Welcome to part 2 of the Stuart major beam engine rebuild. In this one I will be dismantling the beam, and the first thing to do of course is to take the top caps off the beam's main bearings. An overview of this engine just by looking at it tells me that it is extremely well made. The cotter pins come out very cleanly, there's no bodging, they fit perfectly, and the squareness of the holes has to be seen to be believed. These parts are so well made I'm having to use a hammer and a small piece of brass to release them even when the cotter pins are withdrawn. So at the moment this engine puzzles me. The machining is to a high standard, particularly the smaller parts as you see here. But when the thing goes together it's a bit of a disaster area. Maybe the person who machined this engine was not the person who put it together, who knows. Everything on this engine so far is coming apart so well, unlike the previous engine that I worked on. As this video is speeded up considerably, the hammer blows sound really strange. But I'm putting very little pressure on the hammer, it really is a gentle tap. And likewise, there's very little brute force here. I'm using a very small spanner on a very small nut, so I can remove this component from the parallel motion. You will notice at the beginning that I used two plastic boxes. The larger of the two boxes is for larger components and the small green pot is for small parts. And there are plenty of small parts here, especially these split bearing shells. There are plenty of these that act as bearings within the parallel motion. So it's a good idea to make sure they're in a safe place where they can't get lost. As I said earlier, there are some anomalies with this engine. If you look at the hole in the casting, which takes this pin for the water pump, it's not in the centre of the shape part of the casting, and if you look at the other parts of the casting, the same thing applies. The thing that is totally unacceptable is the position of the main bearing shaft in the middle of the beam. It's offset to one side. So I'll try it with a soft hammer first and see whether it moves. Just as I thought, no chance at all. So it's over to the vise in the outer part of the workshop and a little bit of controlled ultraviolence. What I'm doing here is heating up the part because I'm pretty sure that this is held in with some kind of Loctite. After applying the heat for a very short time and using a piece of copper tubing and some material in the vise jaws to protect the metal, I can press the centre shaft into the position I want it to be in, and I can confirm this by measuring it both sides. I don't know why the builder has used Loctite on this component, because if you look, underneath the beam there are many holes, and there was a grub screw in the centre one. The main shaft was held in place by a grub screw and I removed it, but it was also very securely held by some Loctite as well, in the wrong position. When I refit the beam to the column, and move the beam up and down in the correct place, it is not 100% lined up with the piston. So I'm beginning to know what's gone on with this engine now. At first I thought it may be just a problem that the builder pressed in the main shaft with some Loctite and got it in the wrong position, and that was the end of it. But no, it was done on purpose, to try and align the beam with the piston. It's not very far out now, but I do know what's going on. These are the two plumber blocks bolted to the bed plate that hold the valve actuating rod. This supports a 90-degree bell crank that converts horizontal into vertical movement. And as you can see, the hole in the centre is not in the centre, and it should be. I would just simply buy some more castings and start again. The castings for these parts are not very expensive, but a new beam casting is. So if also the holes were in the wrong place in the beam casting, I can see why the builder worked around it. The trouble is though, you don't need to make too many errors on an engine to make a thorough mess of it. That's it for the moment. Thanks for watching, I hope you found it useful.